So Morning Joe talked about the Julian Assange extradition, which has now been approved. He's going to be sent from the UK to the US. He had a stroke because of the stress related to the extradition. It's funny because they originally said we can't extradite him because the US prison system is too barbaric and we're not sure his health will be looked after. Then he has a stroke over the stress of potentially being sent to the US, and they're like, okay, now we'll send him. That makes absolutely no sense. So Morning Joe, in all their infinite smugness and incorrectness, they go on air here, they repeatedly smear Julian Assange, they repeatedly lie, and they botch the most basic facts. Take a look.
Claire McCaskill, there is a lot of smoke surrounding Julian Assange. Of course, there were the charges in Sweden that were subsequently dropped. There is the hacking and his vendetta against Hillary Clinton. There's information that was released that showed military malfeasance by the United States. But, you know, it's so interesting that it used to be the far left who opposed George W. Bush's wars in Afghanistan and Iraq who made this guy a hero under the guise of the First Amendment. And then when he started leaking information against Hillary Clinton, it became the Trump right that suddenly held Julian Assange. So, but let's just forget the politics of this. As a prosecutor, you're given this case, and you've got a guy who's stolen thousands of documents, pages of highly classified national security documents, released them to the world, and in so doing, put the lives of U.S. troops, of people who were working with the United States, allies, collaborators in war zones, in the gravest of danger. Under any scenario, you take politics out of it. And this is an open and shut case. This is not the Pentagon Papers. This wasn't Times editors rifling through documents, figuring out what could be released and what couldn't be released and explaining it. This was a guy that got stolen documents and gave it to the world.
This is a pretty simple case. It's very straightforward. And the beauty of a trial, Joe, is that you narrow all of the extraneous stuff to the charges that are there against the defendant. And the charges in this case are that he was trying to hack into our military information that protects not just our country, but all the men and women in uniform around the world. This is really serious stuff.
All of that is untrue. All of that is untrue. He was trying to hack into our military information. He was not. He was not at all. Chelsea Manning approached him. She had access to the classified top secret information, and the reason she gave it to him, the reason she gave it to a journalist and a reporter to expose it is because she's a whistleblower and she realized, oh my God, U.S. troops in the Middle East just massacred innocent people, journalists, and then circled around and killed the first responders and were laughing about it. Chelsea Manning was exposing war crimes. She's the definition of a whistleblower. Julian Assange took the information and published it because he's a journalist, and that's what journalists do. If they're given something that is noteworthy and newsworthy and important for the public to know because the U.S. government is killing innocent people with our money in our name, well, then that guy is just doing his job. And also, by the way, it's pretty heroic because knowing how tyrannical and dictatorial the U.S. empire can be, he probably knows they're going to come after him for doing the right thing. There's one part where they're right there, where Claire McCaskill goes, this case is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. You're right, but not in the way you think you are. You think it's open and shut in order for him to get locked up. It's actually open and shut for him to be let go. And they should apologize to him and pay him restitution. Let's go through some of the other arguments. I love the bullshit, well, there's a lot of smoke here. There's a lot of smoke here. There's a lot of smoke. Well, how very, judicious and scientific of you. What a great argument against Julian Assange. I see a lot of smoke. They're talking about a BS mucked up sexual assault charge that was against him, which was already dropped. By the way, I wonder why or how that was mucked up against him. The other thing is, one of the guys who was a key witness in the Julian Assange case against Julian Assange literally came out and admitted, I made it all up. I'm a fraudster. I'm a con artist. And he's got, a rap sheet longer than the Bible. There's a lot of smoke for Julian Assange. Then they talk about, well, he did the hacking against Hillary Clinton. He didn't hack at all. Again, he was given documents. He was given information about how the DNC was trying to rig the primary behind the scenes against Bernie Sanders, and that is very, very newsworthy information. You know, if you care about freedom and democracy in what's supposed to be a representative democracy, it's kind of noteworthy that they're trying to rig a primary now, isn't it? So he released that information, and all of a sudden, you know, it's blame the messenger. He didn't rig the primary. He didn't do that. He's just showing everybody how the sausage is made and what went on behind the scenes. And he's the criminal? No, the criminal would be the DNC, rigging the election against Bernie Sanders. By the way, don't take my word for any of this. Go check, go look at the documents, go look at what we know came out. Then, I love the way he smoothed over and took the rough edges off of what really happened and what Julian Assange really exposed. By the way, this case has nothing to do with 2016, nothing to do with the DNC, nothing to do with Hillary Clinton. It's all about WikiLeaks exposing war crimes. Joe Scarborough describes that as military malfeasance against the United States. Military malfeasance against the United States. Look at the soft language for the U.S. massacring journalists and then killing the first responders and laughing about it. He showed some military malfeasance by the United States. Would Joe Scarborough describe an Iranian war crime or a Russian war crime or a Chinese war crime by saying, military malfeasance against the Russians, military malfeasance against the Chinese? What a little hack weasel we're dealing with here. Then, of course, he makes the argument, which goes over so well in elite establishment circles of, well, the far left like him, and now the Trump right likes him, so, you know, he must be doing something wrong. I don't give a shit who likes him. I don't care if Joe Scarborough's grandma likes him. I don't care if Ted Kaczynski likes him. I don't give a fuck who likes him. I care about the actual facts of the case and what went down. Which clearly he doesn't, because he botches virtually every single one of them and smears Julian Assange repeatedly. He stole thousands of classified national security documents and released them. He did not. He did not. He was given the documents by a whistleblower who realized we were committing war crimes. That's what happened. And he ran him because that's what a journalist does. By the way, you know who else ran him? New York Times, Washington Post, many establishment media outlets. Under the Obama administration, they said, even if we want to go after Julian Assange, we can't go after Julian Assange because then we also have to go after the Washington Post and the New York Times and other established press outlets because they ran the story too. That is literally exactly what Julian Assange did. Julian Assange did not hack in. Julian Assange did not steal the information. It was given to him by somebody who has a conscience. How many ways can they be wrong in this one short clip? How many ways can they be wrong? He put the lives of U.S. troops and allies in the gravest of danger. Now, notice something. They did not say X number of people were killed and died as a result of the information that Julian Assange released. Why didn't they say that? Why didn't they make that argument? They can't make that argument because it's totally bogus. Nobody died. Nobody was attacked. Nobody was hurt. And so instead, now they say, well, theoretically, it's possible that maybe something could have happened because of the information that he released, even though it didn't happen. What a complete nonsense dodge and BS argument coming from these smug, arrogant pricks. And believe you me, as a general rule, Morning Joe is conventional wisdom city. Like, that's all they do there, spew conventional wisdom right back to each other's faces. Nobody but, like, the most elite assholes in D.C. and on Wall Street enjoy watching Morning Joe. And then the most hilarious part, they go, this is an open and shut case. Again, I agree with that part, but just in the exact opposite way of how they mean it. They mean open and shut, lock him up. I mean open and shut, let him go. He says, this isn't the Pentagon Papers. It is almost literally exactly the Pentagon Papers. In the Pentagon Papers, Daniel Ellsberg released the information showing the United States was massacring innocent civilians in Vietnam. Just destroying, murdering landless peasants on a regular basis, using napalm and Agent Orange. Just indiscriminately bombing and murdering and destroying. And he was a hero for exposing that. And now we all recognize Daniel Ellsberg as a hero. Julian Assange, it's the exact same thing. Chelsea Manning gave the information of U.S. war crimes. Julian Assange released it. this is why they're throwing the book at him. And he says, this isn't the Pentagon Papers. It absolutely is the Pentagon Papers. You know who agrees with me? Daniel Ellsberg, the Pentagon Papers guy. He's like, this is exactly like the Pentagon Papers. These guys are such frauds. The most infuriating part of all of this is that during the Trump administration, the Morning Joe people went on air and said, oh, Trump hates the First Amendment. He hates a free press. He hates journalism. He hates reporting. And if he had the opportunity, he would lock up every single one of us. He'd come lock us up right now. So these guys are cosplaying as the defenders of journalism and the First Amendment and the Constitution and feigning concern and care. Why? Because Trump was a dick to Jim Acosta and he says the words fake news a lot. So therefore, oh man, he's destroying the First Amendment. But here we have the actual destruction of the First Amendment, which sets a terrible, tyrannical, dictatorial precedent, and they support that precedent. They support the destruction of the First Amendment. Now, by the way, what they're saying isn't even true about Trump, that was his biggest threat to journalism, being mean to elite assholes. His biggest threat to journalism was when he cracked down on Julian Assange. He kept the case against Julian Assange. So, in that sense, he is destroying journalism. He was trying to destroy journalism, but they had nothing to say about that. In fact, they support that. These guys are absolutely shameless. Complete shameless clowns, idiots, charlatans, frauds, con men. It's just, honestly, it's just embarrassing. Even, like, look, if the bare minimum that anybody can say, this is the bare minimum that's acceptable in this conversation. I don't like Julian Assange personally. I think he's a prick. I think he's kind of weird. But look, you can't throw the book at him and you can't lock him up because fact of the matter is if you do that, you have destroyed journalism. You have destroyed the First Amendment. You can no longer have noteworthy information that the public should know be released to journalists to then release it to the public because then they just throw charges at the journalists and say you're not allowed to expose that. But they can't even muster that. They can't even muster that. This is beyond pathetic. It's beyond pathetic. And you have U.S. so-called journalists actively cheering on the death of journalism, which really goes to show you they're not journalists. These people are paid stenographers to power centers, whether it's big money financial institutions, capital, military industrial complex, Democratic Party, Republican Party. Throughout U.S. establishment media, obviously you have a whole spectrum of interests that are being represented by mouthpieces. But the one perspective that's completely left out of the equation is truth and honesty and fairness and reporting correct information. You don't get any of that there. None of it. You get some of that in new media, but you also get psychopaths who are total conspiracy theorists in new media. So, but this is just beyond disgusting, terrifying the precedent this sets, if indeed it goes down how we fear it's going to go down, and the entire time, it's vacuous applause from all these cackling hyenas, these snakes, these idiots on MSNBC. This is shameful. I mean, you want to talk about being totally incapable of doing your job effectively? None of these people should be on TV. It's a sick joke they are. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.